There is something special about HBO's Rome. On the surface, sure, it's a lavish historical drama. Political intrigue, bloody battles, sex, betrayals, and all the things you'd expect from a show set in the dying days of the Roman Republic. But underneath it all is so much more. The show is not just about Caesar, Antony, Brutus, or Cleopatra. It's about a society coming apart at the seams. It has themes of loyalty, class, family, ambition, and the everyday people who get swept up in the storm. Rome doesn't just show you ancient Rome, it puts you in it. The sweat, the dust, the whispers in the Senate, and the blood in the gutters. So today, let's look at why HBO's Rome isn't just a great series. It's one of the most brilliant historical TV shows ever made. Before the cameras rolled, before the first sword was drawn, Rome began as an idea between HBO and the BBC, and creators John Milius, William J. MacDonald and Bruno Heller pitched Rome not as a textbook adaptation of Roman history, but as a character-driven political drama with real people at its heart. He wanted to humanise the legends by making Caesar bleed, make Antony laugh, and make Cleopatra scheme and seduce with desperation. The BBC brought in their historical expertise, HBO brought in the budget, and the Italian broadcaster RAI helped facilitate the production on the ground. And the show was filmed entirely at Cinecittà Studios in Rome. A little interesting fact, it was Benito and Vittorio Mussolini who founded the studios in 1937, with early films shot there such as Scipio Africanus. The team built full-scale sets, including a detailed reconstruction of the Roman Forum, Subura, temples, apartments, taverns, bathhouses, and military encampments. This wasn't just a backdrop, it was a living, breathing city. Everything was weathered, layered, dirty. Extras were trained to move like Romans. Every coin, every dish, the robes, everything was era appropriate. Historical consultants were brought in to ensure accuracy wherever possible, down to the graffiti on the walls. It was an unprecedented gamble. At the time, Rome was the most expensive TV show ever made, and the production schedule was brutal. Scripts were written on the fly, costumes had to be aged and rebuilt weekly. The logistics of managing an international crew in a recreated ancient city were just staggering. But the result? Well, it was something never seen before on television. A show with the visual depth of a Hollywood film, the character focus of a prestige drama, and the historical scale of an epic. And now, with the groundwork laid, the story could begin. Season 1 drops us into a world on the edge of revolution. It is Rome, 52 BC, and Julius Caesar, who was played with brilliant quiet intensity by Kieran Hines, has conquered Gaul, and he's coming home. But the Senate? Well, they're panicking. Pompey Magnus, once Caesar's ally, now his rival, and conservative senators like Cato and Scipio all fear one thing: Caesar is going to make himself king. But here's the genius. The show isn't just about those political players. It's about two soldiers who, on paper, are nobodies. Lucius Vorenus and Titus Pullo. Vorenus, played by Kevin McKidd, is this tight-wound, honour-obsessed centurion. Duty, family, Rome. That's his world. And watching that world crack and break him over time after time is absolutely heartbreaking. And Pullo, played by the late great Ray Stevenson, is pure chaos. a brawler, a drunk, a killer, but also funny, loyal, and sometimes weirdly sweet. Together, Vorenus and Pullo form one of TV's greatest odd couple friendships. They fight, they save each other, they hurt each other, and they heal each other. They are, honestly, the soul of the show. Meanwhile, in the political sphere, we've got Atia, Caesar's niece, played by Polly Walker, who is absolutely magnetic. She is ambitious, manipulative, seductive, and somehow also insecure and vulnerable. She's not just power-hungry, she's a survivor. On the other side, we have Servilia, Brutus's mother, played by Lindsay Duncan, all quiet fury and grief, especially after Caesar betrays and humiliates her. Their rivalry is one of the show's sharpest emotional threads, driving some of its most shocking moments. And as the season unfolds, we get Caesar's civil war with Pompey, his rise to dictator, his affair with Cleopatra in Egypt, the perceived birth of his son Caesarion, and, of course, the slow build towards the Ides of March. One of the most iconic betrayals in all of history, period. But what makes it brilliant isn't just that we know it's coming, it's that the show makes us feel it. We care about these people. We know what they're losing. When the knife goes in, it's not just the death of a man, it's the death of an era. And when Season 2 opens up in the aftermath, Caesar is dead, and the Republic is in a shattered mess. Brutus, played heartbreakingly by Tobias Menzies, is not just some cold conspirator. He's a man drowning in guilt, and ideals that he just can't live up to. We also have the evolution of Mark Antony in the second series, played brilliantly by James Purefoy. He's magnetic, charming, drunken, violent, unpredictable, and a man you just can't help watch, even as he spirals into ruin. We also have Octavian, Caesar's heir, who, over the course of the season, transforms from an awkward, brilliant teenager into a cold, terrifyingly political mastermind. Simon Woods plays Octavian with the perfect quiet menace, not loud, not flashy, but ruthless. Watching him outmaneuver Antony, Brutus, and even his own mother is honestly incredible. And Vorenus and Pullo? Well, their friendship is pushed to its absolute limits. Vorenus loses everything: his wife, his children, his honour, and descends into Rome's criminal underworld. Luckily, Pullo stays by his side, just trying to pull him back into the light, sometimes making things worse, but always, always loyal. And while the central figures of Rome command much of the spotlight, the show's brilliance is deepened by its rich cast of side characters. From the tragic arc of Niobe, Vorenus' wife, to characters like Posca, Caesar's clever slave and scribe, or even Timon, Atia's conflicted lover and enforcer. These all offer grounded perspectives on life outside the Senate and the battlefield. Even really minor roles of slaves, soldiers, street thugs, senators are written with surprising depth, making the world of Rome feel fully alive, brutal, and heartbreakingly human. And in just 22 episodes, Rome gives us a sweeping, intimate, bloody, and beautiful portrayal of how power changes hands and what it costs to take it. The series' major details are generally historically accurate, and that is a strength. But many of these minor details were dramatised, and creative liberties were taken, which is understandable. You're creating TV after all. Some things can be monotonous and boring, so adding drama to it gives it a little bit of spice. The show is generally told from the perspective of Lucius Vorenus and Titus Pullo, Roman soldiers in the same legion of Caesar's army during the conquest of Gaul, and who were briefly mentioned in his Commentari de Bello Gallico. However, almost all of their adventures in the series are quite fictional. Co-creator Bruno Heller has said, we try to balance between what people expect from previous portrayals and a naturalistic approach. This series is much more about how the psychology of the characters affect history than simply following the history as we know it. Series historical consultant Jonathan Stamp also notes that the show aims for authenticity rather than accuracy, and because of this, changes were made and creative liberties taken for the benefit of a TV audience. Now, I won't go through every change, but there are quite a few examples. Atia the Julii, while a real person, is portrayed as more ambitious and politically active figure rather than historical records suggest. In reality, she sheltered her son Octavian more than the show. She also wasn't the lover of Antony. This was fictionalized. She was also never involved in any of Octavian's reign or rise to power. She died in 43 BC, a year before the Battle of Philippi. Rome's historical consultant Jonathan Stamp identifies the historical figure Claudia as the primary basis for the character of Atia. In the case of Octavia, we see her early on with her husband Glabius, whom she is forced to divorce to be a match for Pompey. Now, there is no mention of her actual husband, Claudius Marcellus, to whom she was steadfastly married. After Marcellus's death in 40 BC, Octavia indeed did marry Mark Antony to seal a temporary political alliance between her brother and her new husband. Back then, women were often used as political objects, and it was very much a case of survive or die. With Mark Antony, he is less of an idiot than the show makes him out to be. Now, I certainly wouldn't have him on my pub quiz team, but he was capable in his own ways. He was also married the whole time the show was happening. Her name was Fulvia, and she conveniently died right in time for Antony to marry Octavian's sister, and then, afterwards, Cleopatra. Antony's move east was also not forced by Octavian. He wanted to go east and conquer Parthia. The east had more opportunities for someone like Mark Antony to become more of a legend. It is a shame that the invasion of Parthia wasn't shown, however it is understandable given the show only got 2 seasons. With Caesar himself, after seizing control of Rome, he didn't immediately pursue Pompey to Greece. Instead, he turned west, marching to Spain to neutralise Pompey's forces there, which were leaderless but still dangerous. Only after securing the west did Caesar cross into Greece to confront Pompey directly. Even after defeating Pompey at Pharsalus, the war wasn't over. Caesar had to fight a brutal campaign in North Africa, and then again in Spain, facing the remnants of the Pompeian faction. Interestingly, the series Rome omits one of Caesar's most important real-life allies, Titus Labienus. Labienus wasn't just a friend, he was Caesar's most trusted lieutenant during the Gallic Wars. But during the Civil War, Labienus sided with Pompey and became one of Caesar's fiercest enemies. Another change relates to Quintus Pompey. Now, he is not the son of Pompey the Great in real life. Sextus Pompey, however, was, and he formed alliances with whoever he could to fight against Caesar, Antony, and later Octavian. And although it was funny seeing Antony kill him in Rome, he didn't in real life. Sextus Pompey was captured in 35 BC and executed without trial in Miletus by Marcus Titius, and this was after being defeated by Marcus Agrippa and losing Sicily. Speaking of Agrippa, he was far more of a leading man than displayed in the show. It only glosses over his military exploits. He also never, that we know of, dated or was interested in Octavian's sister. Although so much sex went about back then, you never know who could have shacked up with who. It was Octavian's daughter that Agrippa ended up marrying. Cleopatra is another interesting character from a historical standpoint. Plutarch and many other ancient historians stated that Cleopatra died by a bite of an asp. In antiquity, an asp was a rather generic term for any number of venomous snakes. It's likely that the actual snake that assisted in her suicide was an Egyptian cobra, a deadly snake capable of killing a human in under 10 minutes with a single bite. And historically, Cleopatra did not come to Rome after Caesar's death. She was actually living in Rome when he was assassinated in 44 BC and immediately left upon his murder, never to return. The scene where Cleopatra schemes to give birth to Caesar's child by seducing Vorenus or Pullo gives colour to a historical debate about who Caesarion's true father was. After he was born, Cleopatra openly declared that he was Caesar's child, while several of her political enemies, including Octavian, sought to prove otherwise. I did also enjoy how Lepidus was given Africa by Antony like it was some backwater location with no prospects. In reality, Lepidus got Africa and Hispania, which were rich, prosperous, and heavily militarised. But even though there are rather a lot of changes in these aspects, historically, it does so much more right. Rome itself was designed and built incredibly. The crowded streets, the marble buildings, the pornographic graffiti are all accurate. Now, of course, Rome was a lot more messier than displayed. Bin collectors weren't exactly a thing back then. The city also experienced intense nighttime activities. The series shows it from the first couple of episodes. Things were moving in Rome after dark. In the evening, people regularly went to taverns and cabarets to drink, and we see this with Titus Pullo at the start of the series. And with all this, it is clear that a lot of love and care was taken into the show's creation. And even though some historical elements are wrong or moved, the show respects the era and its history, which is very rare for modern day TV. When Rome premiered in 2005, it was groundbreaking. There was nothing quite like it on TV. This was a show with movie-level production, complex political storytelling, raw sexuality, brutal violence, and characters so morally layered you could argue about them for hours. And before Game of Thrones, Spartacus, Vikings, Rome was the show proving you could do big, adult, historical drama on TV. It showed studios and audiences that viewers were ready for stories when no one was safe, where heroes were flawed, and where there were no easy moral answers. That formula, huge budgets, international talent, high production values, became the blueprint for a wave of prestige historical series. Critics loved it, fans adored it, historians admired how much texture and authenticity it brought to screen. But the bitter truth? It was just too expensive to last. Originally, creator Bruno Heller planned for 4 or 5 seasons. They wanted to explore the reign of Augustus, and maybe even the rise of Christianity. But after Season 1's massive costs, the plug got pulled during Season 2, forcing them to wrap up the story at breakneck speed. Heller even admitted later that the back half of Season 2 compressed what they planned for entire future seasons. That's why the final episodes feel a bit like a sprint. Not because the writers were careless, but because they were told, this is it. And yet, even just with 2 seasons, Rome casts a long shadow. You can see its DNA in Game of Thrones, in the moral complexity, the messy politics, the willingness to kill major characters. I still mourn to this day about what could have been, but honestly, I think part of Rome's power is that it burned bright and fast. It's one of those rare shows that ends with people still talking about it, still loving it, and still wishing for more. And that's why Rome is one of my favourite TV shows. It's brutal, it's beautiful, it's smart, and it's tragic. It is packed with characters you love, hate, and sometimes do both at the same time. It doesn't just show you ancient Rome, it drops you right into the mud and marble, the backrooms and the battlefields, the bedrooms, and the Senate floors. This is a show about power, survival, and betrayal, and the price every single person pays when an old world dies and a new one is born. So if you've never watched it, seriously, what are you waiting for? And if you have watched it, you already know. Once you step into this world, it never really leaves you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, give it a like, drop a comment down below and tell me your favourite rogue character or moment. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into brilliant shows and films. And I'll see you next time.